Thanks, Phil. All right, so I'm Paige Sapiga. I'm the vice chair of the Maynard ZBA. The chair, Paul Schneier, has asked me to run tonight's meeting. In attendance from the ZBA, I'd just like to confirm that everyone is present. So when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Let's see, starting with Paul Schneier.
Yeah, I'm here. It shows as my wife, Marianne, but I'm just incognito, so I'll be here.
Thanks, Paul. Leslie,
I'm here.
John,
Here.
let's see, and I know Brad.
I'm here finally.
Great, and I know you're an alternate, but today you'll be filling in for Jerry as a voting member who is unable to make it until later tonight.
Okay.
So at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 7:06 on April 22nd. We have two cases before us. And for anyone following along, the agenda and all of the materials for the meeting are posted on the town website. Before jumping into the agenda, I'd just like to give a quick overview of how the meeting will go. So for each case, we'll begin by reading the published legal notice of the hearing, followed by asking the applicant to present their case. And then after the applicant has finished speaking, the board members will have the opportunity to ask questions. And all questions will be directed through myself. Then when the board members have finished with their questions, we'll solicit comments from members of the public that are in attendance and wish to speak. Following that, the board will discuss the application. They may ask additional questions, will make a motion and conduct a vote. And then there must be at least 4 favorable votes in order for the motion to pass tonight. So the first item that I saw on the agenda is approval of minutes, but Bill, I'm not sure if we have any. Can you?
No meeting minutes are available tonight.
Okay, thank you. Then the second item on the agenda is an appeal of the building commissioner's decision. So I'll now open that public hearing and read the legal notice. So this is a public hearing for 104 Great Road. Public hearing date is Monday, April 22nd, 2024 at 7 p.m. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 15, the Maynard Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a remote public hearing on Zoom to hear all persons interested in the appeal of the building commissioner's decision filed by Abraham Adenon of 12 Utica Street, number A, Lexington, Massachusetts. The subject property, 104 Great Road in Maynard, is located in the general residential zoning district. Per section 10.2 of the protective zoning bylaws, the applicant wishes to appeal the decision by the building commissioner ordering cessation and removal of a rental dwelling unit in the garage. And a copy of the application and all materials can be requested from the Office of Municipal Services at oms@townofmaynard.net. And I'd see.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm just going to point out that we have the building commissioner, Rick Hasman, on audio. Let's see.
Oh, great. And Rick, not to put you on the spot, but welcome to the meeting. Given that this is an appeal of the building commissioner's decision, I think I'd like to start from hearing from you, and then we'll open it up to the applicant after that to see if they have anything to add.
Well, can I assume that the board is in receipt of my order?
Yes, I think that was appended to the staff report.
And basically, a summary of it is that the third unit at this address is a non-compliant use, and that there is no provision for grandfathering non-compliant uses. There is a grandfathering or a sunset for non-compliant structures, but there is not the same for uses under the Zoning Act. And so given the time in which this appears to have been created, and in absence of any permits for its creation specifically, it would have had to have relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals, given the lot size, and from the at that point the Zoning Board of Appeals was doing multifamily before the planning board got into the business sometime around 2010. And so I've ordered the removal of this additional use there, or the third unit. The area in which the unit exists is kind of a shed addition on the back of a two-car garage. The garage itself appears to have been built at the same time that the house was. It has a nice little roof that suggests completeness in terms of the design of the garage and the time in which it was built. And it is fairly apparent that although we don't have records for it, that the shed addition off the back, which I think is about 12 by 20 or so, was done later, prior to the ownership of Abraham, but still is a non-compliant structure, and there's absolutely no forgiveness that I can find within the law for it. In a nutshell.
Thanks, Dirk. Before we open it up to question or discussions from the board, Abraham, I know you're in attendance. Is there anything you'd like to add or present at this time?
I think let me unmute.
Yep, sorry. I was going to say, I think he's muted.
Okay, you need to unmute, Abraham. I think I've.
Hello?
Yeah, I got you.
I can hear
Yeah.
you.
We had a shed. The problem was a few years ago, there was a storm and a pine tree next to my neighbor's house. A big branch fell on the shed outside. There's a big shed. Rick knows that there was a shed. Okay, you can see the map if you gave you the map. But anyway, the studio attachment to the garage has nothing to do with the shed. It was not a shed. Okay, when we bought it in 1983, there was a tenant there, and Mr. Toomey, the original owner, told us there was 3 units, which is listed actually. If you see one of the documents that was given to you, it shows that we have 3 units. And I was paying rent for 3 units. And then a few years ago, I told them the 3rd unit, the studio, has its own sewage system, septic system. So they separated the water from the sewage and water of the big units, the 2 apartments. So since then, I have been paying, just for water. But before that, for a long time, I paid for the whole thing, meaning including the studio, which has a septic system, as if it was being used, by the tenants in terms of sewage. So the correction is the studio attachment has nothing to do with the shed. There is a separate shed. He knows it. Okay, there is a shed by itself. Okay, that's the correction I like to do. And the trees were removed by Asabe Tree Removal Company, 14 of them. You can ask my neighbors; they know all the trees were removed because they caused a lot of problem for us and for my neighbors. So that's the correction I like to make.
If I can respond to that, Madam Chairperson.
Sure, yeah, I think some clarification would be helpful.
When I say shed, I mean a shed roof addition to something that was designed as a hip roof structure. So it's a reference to the type of roof off the back of the building. It may have even started out as a simple shed roof that people store things under in the back of a garage and later been filled in, or it may have been built as an enclosed structure initially. But that's what I'm referring to.
There could be 2 sheds, that, Rick. There was a big shed that was destroyed.
We're not talking
Yeah.
about your shed at all. We're talking about the addition on the back of the garage.
And Bill, I think it might be helpful. Can you share the pictures that were included with the staff report? I think the view from the northwest
Should be up now. Is it up?
might be helpful to see. It's just loading. There we go. Yep. So Rick, just to clarify, is it that circled addition that you were referring to as
Yeah,
shed?
yes.
Okay.
That's a shed roof coming off of a hip roof. So I'm sorry for the confusion.
Yeah, but the big shed was near the tree.
I don't even recall your shed, Abraham, and it
Okay,
really isn't any part of this hearing.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was just going to say, just to clarify what we're here and our charges tonight, it's really to determine whether the building commissioner's determination for this circled
Yeah, this
structure
problem,
is
you guys were
correct.
involved, unfortunately, due to a plumbing issue. The plumber we hired, he didn't get permit from you guys. He brought a unit, okay, ventless unit that he put in the living room, in the bedroom, okay? That was the cause of all these problems, okay? Until then, we have owned it for more than 40 years. We have never had any problem. We had engineers when I was working for digital. There were writers. There were other people who rented it for many, many years. We have never had any problem. All of a sudden, it's like becoming the size of Mount Everest. It's unfortunate. And why, I don't know. But this is not acceptable by my standard.
And I'm sympathetic to the history, but I don't think the assessor's office necessarily is charged or expected to independently confirm whether
No,
structures have been
there were 2 pages, as you know, 2 units together and 1
properly
unit.
permitted.
That was sent to you. You have a copy of that.
What were you referring to?
From the
Mr.
assessor's
Adnan?
office.
Yep, Yes, yep.
Yeah,
we do have that. And I was just saying, I appreciate that being part of the record, but I don't know if I don't think the assessor's office is necessarily charged with independently confirming whether proper permits have been issued for the structures or number of bedrooms that are being identified. But just to keep this meeting on track, Rick, I see I have your hand open, and then I'd like to see if any of the board members have additional comments or questions.
Well, first of all, no, the assessors do not independently confirm. They simply go out and record what they find on the ground. And secondly, Abraham knows that this is not the first problem we've had on this property and the first problem with dwellings. And I don't really want to go into it, but this is.
no, you need to state what the problem was. I like to know what it was. I'll tell you.
Well, I would
Okay,
just, for
well,
both
you-
Rick
you
and
had an
Mr.
illegal
Adnan, I'd really like
apartment
to keep this
basement.
focused to the matter at hand, which is this determination that has been made. I don't want to bring it up or dredge up history or for other structures that
Well,
aren't
it was
necessarily
nothing
relevant.
illegal, okay? That took place in my place. If you know, you came with Walter, the DPW manager at that time. I had Section 8 lady who brought people sleeping in the basement. You know that. He came. There were people sleeping in the basement, and Walter was there. And I involved the police. The police were involved many times, and they told me, "Oh, if you don't bring legal paper, we can't do anything." And that's what I did. I went to court, got rid of her. That was the solution of it. There was nothing illegal, my friend. Okay, so your creation of this wrong, positive, not positive, but negative image of me is totally wrong. It's unethical, unprofessional. Whatever happens is gonna
Mr.
happen.
Adnan, I wouldn't characterize it that way. I think we're
So
here
first of all,
to
the last
determine whether this determination is correct or not correct. We would like to make a determination based on the facts of this case. I don't want to know more about anything else that's
no,
the
nothing-
history of
no,
the
no,
site. I'd like to
absolutely.
keep it focused on this
Exactly.
extension and the non-compliant use.
No, the non-compliant, when we bought it from Mr. Toomey, he was a builder in the area, okay? He told us there was 3 units. was-
I understand that. And the 3
No,
units are shown in the
Beyond that,
assessors.
I'm not a lawyer to go into details, to know this article says that article. I never did that. We assumed that everything was okay until
Right.
the moment where there was a plumbing issue, okay, that caused all of this turmoil, which involves you wasting your time, your energy, instead of doing something else. But whatever decision takes place, that's fine. But Rick himself, when he sent me this letter, not complying, I tried to have a meeting with him until the last minute, the last week. I went there on Tuesday because he stayed late. He didn't even have the courtesy to meet me in his office or in a conference room, in front of his workers, in front of the voters. He undermined me. And I told him, is there anything else?
Okay.
I'm
Mr.
sorry?
Adnan, I don't want this to become a personal attack. I'd like
No,
to hear
no,
from
he-
members
I'm
of the
saying
board if they
I
have
should
any
have a lawyer.
questions.
I would have had a lawyer by now, but the problem was he didn't give me enough time because I had clarification I need from him. He didn't do that until the last minute. I said, "Oh, go hire a lawyer in a week. I'm gonna hire a lawyer." The people from Lexington, Concord, we used to live in Concord. We have lawyers, but they were not involved in this thing because there was no time. It was a short period of time.
Well,
Yeah.
we have this on the agenda tonight. I'm planning on moving forward with it, but in order to do
No,
so,
I'm not trying to stop you, but I'm just trying to say that what has happened is really immoral, illegal, unethical, completely by Rick. I'm talking
okay,
about
I don't appreciate those accusations. So
no.
at this point, Mr. Hannan, I'd like to just, if we could pause, I'd like to hear some questions from the members of the board.
Okay.
See if they have any comments or what their thoughts are on this
Paige?
deliberation.
Paige, this is Paul.
Mhm.
And the
Yes.
question I have is if this Mr. Adnan doesn't have the time yet to prepare his argument, then maybe he should ask for a postponement and we deal with this a few months down the road.
That's an option. I believe that'd be an option, Bill. Is there any reason we couldn't?
Yes, it would be an option. The normal timeframes were followed when an application was received. You know, the town made the required deadlines to make sure that, you know, everything stayed on track. But yes, it would be an option to do. I think
Well,
I would ask Rick, I don't know how that would affect his order. I mean, I would assume it would stay, the cease and desist would remain until the board reached a decision. Is that correct, Rick?
Well, the cease and desist would remain in effect, but the removal of all items that make it a habitable space would be stayed until a decision by the board.
the other side of this
Interesting.
page, if I can make another comment, is this was duly noted, as Bill said, the applicant had enough time to prepare himself, and if he didn't prepare himself, it's
Mhm.
his folly. He should have
Yep.
been preparing himself from the day that the notice was put into place.
Right.
No, I tried to make arrangement. I need clarification on certain items. That's why I couldn't talk to a lawyer until I had a meeting with him to clarify certain things on the 2-page that he sent to me. That's why the reason why I didn't involve.
I don't believe that's the case,
Well,
because
that's
you can
the
hire
So-
a lawyer and say what your problem is and move forward from that. And you haven't done that.
And
Again,
just,
Madam Chair, would you like me to mute everybody and?
yes, thank you, Bill.
Okay.
I was going to say, I was looking at the date of the cease and desist order, and it is February. It was issued in early February, February 6th. So I think that we're in April. I think there's plenty of time personally to figure out what you wanted to do and move on. But either way, it's on our agenda for today. It's here for a reason. I don't have a problem moving forward with it tonight, but I would be interested in hearing from other board members what your thoughts are, or if you have any questions you'd like to ask at this point. And Bill, since everyone is muted, would they need to raise their hands or can they unmute
I think
themselves?
the board can all unmute now.
Okay,
I've asked them to unmute. Let's see.
thank you. I'm so everyone knows where I'm standing. I mean, I feel this is the cease and desist was ordered in February and we're in April, and there's plenty of time to have prepared or requested an extension prior to this meeting if you felt like you needed to hire an attorney or get your case buttoned up a little more. But I'd be interested to hear what others think.
I have a question for Rick, if I could
Sure.
ask. Rick, what originally prompted you to come to the property over this started this?
I'm trying to understand if it originated with the tenant. The tenant was quite scared about a heating unit that had been installed in this space. It had been installed by a licensed plumber and gas fitter, but it was no permit had been pulled for it, and it specifically stated on it that it was not to be used in a sleeping area. And this is a one-room rental. The only separate part is the bathroom. So it's bed, kitchen, heater. And so I think the fire department responded initially and then contacted the plumbing inspector, and he contacted me, and we contacted the plumber who had installed it and went out there together to look at the situation. Up to that point, I was unaware of there being a dwelling on the property, behind the garage there. We've dealt with tenant issues on the property before, and not to go into them, they always dealt with the main two-family house there. So I always looked at that as a garage and assumed that was just an additional storage area in the back. But that's how we got called out. Our concern, of course, was carbon monoxide and the tenant there. So we worked with the fire chief and health division helped out in relocating the tenant and had their device removed at the same time. There was a plumbing issue in the basement. I'm not familiar with what that was.
Thanks, Rick. And I just want to remind everyone that what we're looking at and considering today is the building commissioner's determination that having more than 2 dwelling units is a non-compliant use, since there is no building permit on file for the 3rd dwelling unit. And in this district, 3 or more dwelling units requires a special permit. So there's no history of any of those being granted. So we're just looking at the question of whether the subject property being used for more than 2 dwelling units is a non-compliant use, and the cease and desist order, whether or not that's could stand. I appreciate the context and the history, but I don't want to get too distracted by some of the history of other portions on the site.
I have one more follow-up question.
Right ahead, Brad.
For Rick. Rick, you stated in your letter that that the two-family and the garage was built in 1920. When do you think that 3rd dwelling unit was built? Do you think it's possible it was built sometime shortly after 1920 or around the time, or what's your guess as to where it is? Because that might affect its, if it was built in 1920 at the same time, there may be no record of a permit given for any of it, even the 2-family.
Well, obviously, my opinion is that it was built since the adoption of zoning in 1951. And given the nature of that property, of what it would have been in 1951 with a very nice 2-family house and a nice garage, to me, I would need to see proof that it predated that. It just, to me, it doesn't follow.
Okay, and I just have, thank you for that answer, Rick. I appreciate that. I've got one more question. In your letter, you referenced section 48. I'm sorry, chapter 48, section 6, stating that the provision does not protect the 3rd dwelling unit as it is a non-compliant use. Do you believe that 48, section 647 does protect the garage and the dwelling structure as a non-compliant, as a non-conforming structure.
The structure itself is protected. It is, you know, even without a building permit, a structure that at least is on the property, but was built without a permit and is non-compliant is protected after a 10-year period.
Okay, thank you. So the issue that we have here is not the structure itself, it is the use.
There's no request to remove the structure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Are there any other questions from the board or comments? I don't see any hands, so at this point, we can open it up to the public. I just ask that you raise your hand, either digital or actual hand, if you wish to speak, and wait until I recognize you, and then please state your name and address and direct your questions to me. All right, so are there any members of the public? We'll start with anyone who may wish to speak in favor of this, followed by anyone who's wishes to speak that might be opposed. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak who is in favor? And if you're on the phone, feel free to just come off mute and chime in. Okay, anyone who wishes to speak that it's opposed? No, okay. All right, so at this point, unless anyone chimes in, I think we can I'd ask for a motion to close the public comment, and then we can deliberate and have our discussion as a board. And Bill,
so moved.
feel free to chime in if that's not the right order.
That's fine. I so move.
Thanks, Paul.
Second.
Second, thank you, Leslie. And then because this is a remote meeting, we do need to have a roll call vote for everything. So I'll go through everyone's names, starting with Paul,
Yep.
Leslie,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Brad. Brad, I think you're on mute. Oh, I see your hand. Yes. Okay, Brad's saying yes. And myself, I'm also a yes. Okay, so at this point, the public comment is closed.
Paige,
y-
Jerry here, you
yes.
forgot me.
Oh, hi, Jerry. I didn't see you. Jump
I'm
on.
sorry, I'm hiding in the corner
No,
and,
no,
and I'm a yes also.
you're yes. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm glad you were able to join it earlier than originally thought. Okay. Thanks, Jerry.
that
And I
would-
did not miss you on purpose. I appreciate you jumping in.
That brings one question, Madam Chair. Brad had started this as Brad remaining as the voting member.
I think that makes sense since he was here for the beginning. And then the next case that we hear,
I would concur.
we could swap that and have Jerry be the voting member. Okay. All right, so board members, what are your thoughts? Do you have any?
I have a
Questions?
thought.
Yep, go right ahead, Paul.
I think the building commissioner did a good job of identifying where there is a problem. And I find that this Mr. Adhaman, sorry if I mispronounce it, has not provided any evidence to counter the building commissioner's decision.
Well, as I said, I try to, may I say something?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, I will allow you to respond to this, but
Yeah,
moving
I-
forward, I think we'll keep
know,
it at the board
whatever-
level.
Yeah, I already provided the statement that you need to know about my response in writing. That means when we bought briefly, we bought it as is, meaning we didn't add anything. It was there. And the second thing is myself. I'm not a lawyer to go through details. I couldn't hire a lawyer because whatever reasons I stated earlier. But right now, what I see is we have permit to build. The garage is attached to the unit, there's a door that goes to the garage from the unit. Okay. So basically, when we asked, for permission to add one more room to the studio in 1999, we got this permit. I'm quite sure you saw this. You have it, a copy of it, right? Okay. The point was not to insulate a garage. That wasn't the case. The case was to add a room to the studio so it could be a comfortable unit. That was the main reason why we took this permit. But because my wife has had brain surgery, we haven't had the chance to really focus on that. That's the main reason.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adnan. Bill, do you mind just going ahead and muting everyone? Now that we're public comments closed, I do just want to keep it to members of the board and also clarify that because the public comment has been closed, we can't, I was going to say we can't introduce any new information, but I believe that's only the case once the hearing has been closed.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Brad, I just want to say I appreciated the question that you had for Rick, clarifying that the question is about the question is not in regards to the structure, it's in regard to the use.
Yeah, well, thank you. Sort of following up on that, looking through the chapters, looking through chapter 40A and sections 6 and 7 and our town bylaws, there really is very little language in there about what a compliant use is. It doesn't talk about compliance. It talks about conforming. But it should be fairly obvious that the intent of this is to make sure that before there is a change of use of a property, whether it's conforming structure or non-conforming structure, that the use needs to go in, the change of use needs to go in front of the zoning board or the building, the
Planning
other
board?
boards, planning board. Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Or in front of the planning board. And that hasn't been done. It is unfortunate that the property was purchased with the understanding that there were 3 units on the property, and that the prior owner, or maybe the owner before then, or who knows when, did not get the proper permits, or at least there's none to be found that shows it. And also, it's unfortunate that they've been able to operate for so many years in that unit without any particular issue related to that unit. So it's unfortunate, but it's also understandably it should be enforced.
Yeah, Brad, if I could throw something in on that to confirm what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like when you buy a used car from a private sale and you drive it out of the lot, the old owner's got his money, you drive it out of the lot and it only goes 50 miles down the road before it craps out. That's your problem. You didn't go back and check. You didn't get somebody to verify it.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if that's a great thing because there are lemon laws, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And especially if it's been in use for 45 years,
Yeah.
it seems odd that that suddenly this would happen. But I can understand why it was, because it's been under the radar. And this was a pretty serious code violation that brought it forward. So the fact that the fire department got involved and the Board of Health got involved and then Rick eventually got involved, really has, doesn't really matter about on Rick's decision, because Rick's decision is based on 40A sections 6 and 7, perhaps section 5, and of course our town bylaws with section 5, which talks directly about conforming and non-conforming structures and uses. And it specifically says that any use has to go through a granting board. And this
Yes.
property has not.
I think that the two of you summed that up rather nicely. It is unfortunate, but it's when you look at the facts and the approvals that would otherwise be required that were not documented or issued. I think that speaks for
One
itself.
more thing. One of the things that I saw that was with our town bylaws, section 5. It talks about a lot about 1 and 2 family dwellings. And that I think it was sort of implying that a multifamily dwelling, 3 or more units, would not be part of this, or a part of, would not apply to section 5 of our town. But this is, I believe this is a case where you have a 2-family and a separate single family on it. So I don't think that this falls under the category of having a 3 or more unit structure.
Thanks, Brad. And Bill, just to clarify, I think you had confirmed with legal, there's language in the cease and desist order that there's no provision in MGL Chapter 48, Section 7 that provides for a statute of limitations on the removal of non-compliant uses. And I think you confirmed that with legal.
That is
Is
correct.
that right? Okay. Thank you.
So moving, if the owner wanted to move forward and try to turn that unit into a legal structure, into a legal use, I should say, a compliant use, would have to go in front of the board and perhaps the planning board, zoning board, and perhaps the planning board, get
Correct.
approval through a variance. Is that correct?
It would require a variance from the zoning board of appeals. And it would also require a special permit from the planning board for a multi-unit dwelling.
If I comply with the Maynard Board of Health requirements, would that satisfy the town?
No,
No.
no, this is a non-compliant zoning issue that has to be resolved. And it just to be clear for the board, to obtain any sort of permission to do this would be a separate petition. So this is separate from this altogether.
Okay, so the petition, I start with the planning board, is that what you're saying?
Well, it would be, we should talk about that offline, but in general, it could go either, it could use either of they'd probably run simultaneously.
Zoning and planning, right?
I'm sorry?
You're talking about zoning and planning?
Yes,
Well,
but they would be separate petitions from this, nothing to do with this.
Okay.
And they could probably run concurrently, more or less.
Bill, didn't Rick outline that in his letter?
Pretty much.
So I think he ought to go through his letter, get his attorney involved, and figure out how he wants to move forward, depending on how we make our decision tonight.
That would be my suggestion.
Are there any other questions on that note? Any other questions or comments from the board, or does everyone feel like we are ready to make a motion? I don't see any hands, so I think we need a motion to close the hearing, and that would need to be seconded, and then a motion regarding the zoning board's decision to follow that. And I just want to remind everyone that the motion needs to be made in the affirmative. So it would be a motion to grant the appeal. And in that instance, a yes. I need to make sure I get this right. If you vote no, it would uphold the building commissioner's decision. And if you vote yes, then it would be affirming the building commissioner's order.
So let me make a stab at that page, okay?
Yep, please.
That I move we grant the petition of Mr. Abraham. And then if we all vote against my motion, we uphold the building commissioner's decision.
Correct.
And so somebody give that a second, and then we move forward with the vote.
Second.
Seconded by John. Thank you, John. All right, then we have roll call vote. And Paul, you're first on my list.
And so I would vote no, saying that I'm disagreeing with the answer, or the applicant.
Yep.
So a no vote means we're supporting the building commissioner.
Correct. Yep. Thank you, Paul. Leslie?
Sorry, I vote no as well.
Thank you. John?
No.
Brad?
No.
No. Myself, I am also a no. And Jerry, I don't think you're voting on this one, but if you'd like to go on record, you can. Otherwise, I think we'll tap you to be an active voting member for the next case.
Even though my vote doesn't count, I would also say no.
All right.
Okay.
Bill, are there next steps for this one?
Yeah, the next steps would be I'll write a decision. And I'll provide it to the applicant. And then the applicant can determine what next steps they'd like to do, and the office will be happy to assist all around. But in this case, it's just a decision that the chair, in this case, you'll be asked to execute when it's completed.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, or Mr. Adnan, for
Right.
coming tonight.
Thank
So
you.
don't forget to close this hearing.
That's right.
We
do need a
voted, but we
motion.
didn't close the meeting yet.
Thank you. We do need a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing.
Thanks, John. And second, I see Leslie. And then we'll roll call vote that. Paul,
That's right, yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
John,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
and myself, as I am also a yes.
Oh, you've got a
And
hand there.
Rick, yep,
Rick
I
has something.
just saw your hand pop up.
Yeah, your hearing's closed, so this is just informational. Bill's right about just writing up the decision. I just wanted to add that the decision is like any other decision you would issue. It has its own appeal period. So if the applicant is aggrieved by your decision, they can take it to a court of appropriate jurisdiction.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay.
Okay. So
Let's,
do you have the agenda there, Madam Chair? You want me to pull it
yep,
up?
I'm just pulling up the next hearing notice. So next on the agenda, pulling it up right now, is a public hearing for 6 Glendale Street. And I am now going to open the hearing and read the legal notice. So,
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Yep.
That's one, thank you.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Haddon. I appreciate your time. And please follow up with Rick or Bill if you have questions about next steps.
Thank you very much.
So the legal notice, public hearing, 6 Glendale Street. The hearing will be held Monday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 5. The Maynard Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a remote public hearing on Zoom to hear all persons interested in the application submitted by Joanna Morales, 219 Bishop Drive in Framingham. The subject property, 6 Glendale Street in Maynard, Massachusetts, is a pre-existing non-conforming business located in the Business Zoning District. The subject property's current use is as an auto detailing shop, and the applicant is proposing the use of an auto body repair shop. Because the structure on subject property is non-conforming due to insufficient frontage and setbacks, a finding by the board is required per section 5.1.2 of the protective zoning bylaws that the proposed use of an auto body shop would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. A separate special permit from the planning board will be required for the proposed auto body shop. And then a copy of all of the application and associated materials may be requested from the Office of Municipal Services.
Madam Chair, just one correction on there. I think it was a slip of the tongue or perhaps a typo on my part, but the current use is auto detailing, and that is a permitted use. It's not, it's a structure's non-conforming.
Structures. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, and it's a non-conforming lot, but that doesn't come into it at this particular juncture. The second thing is that Brad is in this one, Jerry will be sitting in, Brad is a affected party. So for that reason, town council has advised that we keep it the way we keep Jerry in this particular one. We didn't know Jerry was going to be here anyway, so it's a
It's a nice surprise. Congratulations, Jerry. You've been promoted to a member for this one.
I guess I'll say thank you, but I'm not so sure. I'll take it.
Okay.
And
So-
this, oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, no, go right ahead, Bill.
I was just going to announce the applicants here. Joanna Morales is here as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And Joanna, why don't I start? I'll turn it over to you to just present what you're asking and give us a little background, and then we can open it up to questions from the board members.
Okay, so originally we were on 76 Powder Mill. And then we had some building issues, so we ended up coming to 6 Glendale. We had 6 Glendale for a while. We just didn't use this property. We just used it as storage pretty much. So what we're requesting, we're gonna use the detail shop as it was permitted in the past. But we're asking if we can use it as like a repair shop for our cars. So like a mechanic shop.
Okay.
Because originally our business was all about auto body, which my some of the guys actually still are, they worked something out with the landlord at 76 Powder Mill, but that will be at a later date when they figure out their stuff to go in front of the board, planning board. But we are hoping that we can work with them to do our body stuff there, and then we just do our mechanic stuff here. But we are also requesting, which I don't think I added that in, I'm not 100% sure because this was like months ago. We want to work on our, like, we want to buy cars from auction and obviously repair them, not bodies, but like the mechanics part, and then use them as rental cars, affordable rental cars, because sometimes people who would bring their cars like for collision, their insurance might not cover a rental car, where if they go to the body shop in Powder Mill, they can come to us to rent a vehicle, which would be just a used one. But that's pretty much all we're asking to do. We're not trying to, cause any disruption to the neighborhood, because Glendale is actually in like I don't want to say the worst spot, but it's just all residential besides the movie theater that's on Main Street, I think, or Acton Street. I don't remember, but it's next to us. But we have did a lot of like test runs to see like the noise, but we will be working from like 9 to 5, and then on the weekends it would just be Saturday half day. So we're not disrupting anyone that's around.
Okay. Thank you, Joanna. Bill, I have a procedural question. This potential rental car component, if that wasn't necessary, if that wasn't clearly disclosed in the legal notice or the application, does that preclude us from considering that piece this evening?
I'm looking that up now. The motor vehicle, repair work or body is certainly, covered. But rental, I don't. I'll look at that. If you-
Okay, while you look that up,
Yeah. I'll
um,
look at that.
Joanne, I just have a few other clarifying questions. Can you just give me, for my own background and understanding, I don't deal a lot with automobiles or cars. Can you just give me some examples of like what happens at a detail shop now, like what your operations are and what those typical activities include?
For the detail shop, it's just, you know, when you want to get your car clean, like especially in the spring after having with the snow and the rain, everything. In the past, so before we moved in here, I know that there was problems with the detail shop. There was no drain for the water, the excess water, which that was in place before we moved in. So the property owner did place that, so it would fall under all the bylaws, I think it is, or however the town specified that to have a running detail shop. So that would be, you know, if someone wants to get their car cleaned, we can clean it. So from interior
Okay,
to exterior.
so
And then,
like car washing and vacuuming and
Yeah.
those type
So
of
like if
activities?
you go to a Scrub-A-Dub and you want to do it yourself, we can do that. But if you want to get it done and get like literally the seats taken out to get underneath everything, we
I
do
see.
that.
Okay. Okay, and then can you give just a quick description of what the mechanic shop uses would entail?
Yeah, so we can change like the motor and transmissions, oil changes. So the basic mechanics that you would use, tune-ups and everything. At this moment, we can't do anything on the lift. We didn't want to make any changes to the building if you guys had denied our, but we're hoping that speaking with the landlord in, you know, pulling the correct permits, we would be able to adjust one of the garages, because it's actually 3 garages. So like the first garage is the detailing, and then we have 2 open garages, which we can fit 2 cars. And we have looked at the way that the building is set up to be able to actually put at least a lift to lift the car a little bit more than using a jack. So we can get under there if need be. So pretty much anything like brakes, tires, oil changes, just the
Would
basic.
it include like body work, like
No, there will be no body work.
dents or?
That's why we're gonna, you're gonna see me again, but maybe the planning board will, for 76 Powder Mill, so I can get their business, because I guess I'm pro at this now, that this is my second time. So we're going to work with them and do it that way, because here is not permitted for body work at all. We don't have the space, nor do we have the spray booth that would be needed for that particular job.
Right, thank you. And just stating to help me wrap my head around it, because this is a bit of an unusual finding compared to some of our other cases where we're not necessarily issuing a variance or something like that. The pertinent question in this case that the board will need to consider is whether the proposed change, in this case, the use, the body repair shop, is more detrimental than the existing use, which is the auto detailing business. So I'd open it up to the board and see if you have any questions or comments. Yep, Leslie, go right ahead.
But I'm sorry, Leslie,
Oh.
I mean, man, just 1 second.
Sure.
I would like to, I'll take advantage of having Rick on the phone here, if he doesn't mind. Looking for car rental, automobile rental. There's not a category specifically for that. And my guess, but I'll check with Rick, is that it would fall under outdoor parking of commercial vehicles. Would that stand correct, Rick?
Motor vehicle sales. New or used, and what you're looking for is rental,
Yeah, or would it be
and you think it would go under what?
outdoor commercial vehicle storages over more than one? If not sales.
Hold on. Which one are you looking at, Bill?
Well, I'm shooting in the dark a little bit. I'm looking under accessories, accessory uses and other uses. Overnight outdoor parking of more than one commercial vehicle not to exceed 25,000 pounds.
Yeah, that most closely fits.
So that would be a special permit as well. So,
It should be.
yeah. So, but my
It's either that or it's prohibited.
Well, this is in the, what district was this in?
business
Business
The
district.
business district.
So that would be a select board approval, if I'm looking at this correctly, as an accessory. You're looking at the accessory and other uses.
no.
No, it's a Board of Appeals.
Appeals.
Oh my,
I'm so
Maybe-
sorry. I didn't mean to make any confusion.
okay, I might be looking at the wrong table.
On yeah, I could. Would
They
you like?
usually just do marijuana and porn shops.
Okay. The interesting ones.
Mm.
The ones they don't trust us with.
I'll make sure I'm looking at the right table.
Yeah, let me take a look at some too.
Paul, I see your hand while we're looking into this question.
Yeah. As I
Oh,
remember reading the application for this, there was some comment about parking the cars in the municipal parking lot. Is that part of this rental car stuff?
No, that's for the employees. So it would be at, I think it's the Veterans Park, the one across the street from the,
Memorial Park.
yes, Memorial Park, I'm sorry. So it would just be for the employees. There's like 3 of us right now. And so because if we have cars that we're fixing, we don't want to take up too many parking spots. And if a customer comes, we want the customer to have the parking spot here. And we don't want to, the other thing is we don't want to park on the street, only because if we have a tow truck coming and there's too many cars in the street, we don't want to be taking up spots. And it's not permitted to park in the library parking lot because we're not going to read or doing anything with the library. So we were gonna use the public parking for our employees.
so Bill, getting back to the use. If the fixing of vehicles was also going to not only result in rentals, but also sales, then you'd want to go under motor vehicle sales and give this one up to the planning board for a special permit. And if the ZBA wants to hold on to it, they can look at the overnight parking of more than one commercial vehicle as a Board of Appeals special permit in combination with an allowed services business. a by right services business.
So that would, you'd say that if the one way would be to roll the lease into auto sales and bring it to the planning board?
Yeah, if
Hmm.
if their intent is to also sell some of these vehicles,
Okay,
you could roll it in and it would become a planning board special permit. But if the only intent was rental vehicles, then you could have it as a general or personal services establishment or something of that nature that's allowed by right, and then the overnight parking of the rental cars would be a Board of Appeals special permit.
got it.
Okay.
So just to be clear, you're really planning on having a rental business, sort of like Hertz or Avis, as opposed to you would be lending out these cars to customers while their cars were being worked on? It's actually renting and not loaning?
Well, because even if their car's not getting worked on, if they don't have a car, and like because sometimes there will be times that Enterprise doesn't even have any vehicles, and we'll get customers and they're like, well, I need a car, and we're like, well, you can try Avis, and Avis doesn't have any, and then they have to travel to, I don't know, Leominster for the next Enterprise, or Framingham for another Enterprise, where if we have vehicles, like 5 vehicles, if they need a vehicle, we can rent it to them. There'll probably be times where we do loan our cars. So for example, if we have to take their car in for service and it's going to be a whole entire day, like, you know how the dealerships, when it has like the whole day, okay, you can take this car and you have to bring it back.
Yeah.
We probably won't charge them there, but when it comes to working on their car, and if it's at Powder Mill for like 2 weeks, we're gonna lose money by loaning them the car, where they can get the receipt for paying, and then they can ask their insurance to reimburse it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't plan on having many cars. It's just because the lot is not that big, and if we are working on other people's cars, we need to make sure we have room for those cars.
Okay. And then you said that 2 of the 3 garages are open?
Well, open meaning like that's where you can fit 2 cars. With the detail, you can only fit 1 car in there, and that's mainly for detailing. Where the other 2, you can fit 2 cars and do mechanic work on it.
Okay, but
They have doors, but it's just, when I say open, I meant like there's nothing in there that would make it difficult to work on them.
okay. So detailing, I'm picturing, is a fairly quiet business, and car mechanics can be pretty noisy. Like if you're trying to whack the hell out of a brake that's stuck or whatever, it can get pretty noisy. So my concern, for one thing, is the amount of additional noise compared to what the business is now. So I think that's something that would have to be addressed.
May I? So we did tests like with the doors shut, and you barely can hear noises, because we even talked to neighbors. So in the parking lot, there's actually 8.5 Glendale, and they're like, half the time we don't even realize that you're here until they come out and they see us. But we're also planning on working during the normal working hours from 9 to 5. We're not going to go past 5 o'clock, because we know that we have, I believe, a few apartments or a few homes down on Glendale. They watch kids and they sleep, so we don't try to make any noises, and we try, like, the smell from the detail, you can't even smell the products that we're using. So we try to be mindful. We did speak with some of the nearby neighbors just to see what they thought about it, because we didn't want to go for the zoning if they thought it was going to be a problem. Because we didn't want to get approval from you guys, start doing the work, and then they're calling saying that we're disturbing them, that we're causing problems.
Mhm.
But we do try to be mindful of, you know, the noise. We do shut the door if it's gonna be too loud, but right now, we're just working on our own cars.
Mhm. And the Saturday hours were just the morning?
10 to 4 PM.
Well, I'm wondering, because sometimes there are, I don't know what time the movie theater, of course, I guess they don't have any more right to that parking lot than anybody else, right? It's a public lot. But sometimes there are afternoon movies.
We can park it, we can use a couple of the spaces if that's an issue with the public parking. We can park in our parking lot. We'll just have to figure out a way so we're not obstructing any like safety zones, like being able to come in and out, and being able to have room for the customers' cars.
Mhm.
Because we can at least line up 3 cars in front of each other in each, in the parking lot. So it'd be like back to back.
Mhm. Okay. I don't have any more questions right now.
Thanks, Leslie. And Paul, I see your hand up.
Yeah. I'm confused about all this parking, and I'm wondering if Bill could put up that map that showed the hypothetical number of parking places and where she would be putting them all and stuff like that.
Let's see here.
Because she's talking about customer cars, she's talking about rental cars, employee cars, and it sounds to me like it's going to be pretty tight wherever this is.
Okay, let me see if this is the one you're talking about, Paul. Is that it?
I think so, yeah, because she made some extra marks there as to how she's
Yeah.
going to stuff more cars in there.
Yeah. I think that's the. Yeah, that's the only.
Yeah, that one shows it very well.
Yeah, I think that's it then. And the parking lot on the right, that's the library, right?
Yeah.
This is a library, yeah.
And so she's gonna put what she say, 5 rental cars, and then how many customer cars? What? huh. Where are these garages now? Are those little tiny buildings to the right of those cars that are parked?
Here. Oh, Paul, you can't see it, can you? You're
Yeah, I
not.
got the computer running.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, over here.
Is it on the left or is it on the right behind that big building?
No, this is
Right,
right,
right in the middle of that picture. Isn't that it?
Behind that red line.
right here.
Oh, okay.
What are the buildings that are on the street at the opposite end of that property?
I've got some pictures here I took down here, okay. Well, this is looking from the northwest side towards the theater
Mm-hmm.
park.
So it's a house.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So, Paige, I've lost track of what the request is for this. Is it the change of use, or does it include looking at the parking issues, or what are we doing?
No, so we're only considering whether the proposed use is more detrimental to the surrounding community than the current use. So I think we could consider some of these topics that are being brought up when we're making that decision. But ultimately, our decision is whether the proposed use is more detrimental than the current use.
And if we agree that they could go forward, they can do whatever they want with the parking? Or are we going to put stipulations on the parking? Or are we going to follow Rick's suggestion and, maybe go in front of planning board for this one?
Well, I think Bill, you could weigh in, but I think it needs planning board
No, yeah, it has to go.
regardless.
Yeah, what, if this use, wasn't, if the structure wasn't non-conforming right now, and if everything was conforming, they would not be required to come to the zoning board. They would go to the planning board for a special permit, for auto body. But because it's a non-conforming structure, they are required to have a determination that what's being proposed is no more detrimental than the current use to the surrounding area. If the board decided it is more detrimental, that's that. If the board decided it was not, it doesn't mean that the use would go. Here, Rick's coming in, so he may have something.
Yeah, I just wanted to help clarify it a little bit. This is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. I can't remember if the frontage is inadequate, but certainly the setbacks of the building are inadequate for the business district. So it really doesn't matter what the use is now, and it doesn't matter what they want to change the use to. It could be a use that was allowed by right currently, and they want to change it to another use, a different use that is allowed by right. They would still be before this board to have this finding. In this particular case, they propose to change it to a use which is going to require a special permit at some point from the planning board or from the zoning board of appeals, depending on how they craft it. But this is just a finding hearing relative to the change of use for this building. Does that help a little?
It certainly does, Rick. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So may I make a comment?
Yeah,
That's,
go right ahead.
so Glendale, no, is it Glendale?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a one-way street. And right now with the business the way it is, people drive their cars there. Their cars are functioning fine. But if it's going to suddenly be a mechanic shop, you can expect that a fair number of cars are going to have to be brought in on a tow truck on a street that's one way, probably because it's pretty narrow to start with. I think that's something that needs to be considered in terms of whether or not this is more detrimental to the neighborhood.
Yeah, great point, Leslie. And if you look at the figure that's provided in the site in the application, it looks like it's right next to a daycare in addition to being across from the library. So there's potential for a lot of pedestrian traffic or kids running around, which makes that potentially more of a concern, the increase in tow trucks. Bill or Rick, I just have a procedural question. Given that the rental component was presented this evening, Rick, you said something earlier where if we wanted to roll in the rental vehicles, it could be considered as a general or personal services establishment that's allowed by right, and overnight parking of the rental cars would be allowed by zoning board special permit. Would that be a new finding where we would have to specifically consider each of those criteria? It's not necessarily the finding that only the finding that's currently presented in the staff report. if we wanted to grant the rental. I just wanted to make sure we have the right findings, or
Yeah.
follow-up question, I guess, can we even consider that since that special permit was not part of the legal notice?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that in this case, yeah, this was a finding. This wasn't a special permit use.
Right.
So I think that it would require a new application. Would you agree, Rick?
Yes. Yes, this hearing cannot grant a special permit for use. You are considering the proposed use of the use that they're proposing to change to with regards to your finding, but it does not grant them a special permit. That was not the advertisement of this hearing.
So that need to be a subsequent public hearing to weigh in on, assuming this moves forward. I don't want to overcomplicate things. I guess I'm just looking for guidance on the best way to handle this procedurally, since that
Yes,
was new information.
that would require an additional filing and advertising for that hearing. And that is the time at which, but you would consider the details of the site plan as opposed to what you're considering now, which is more a macro impact of the
Okay.
proposed change.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Rick. So it does make sense to keep going forward and getting the board's temperature on this general macro finding, and before determining next steps. Okay. All right. Are there any other board members that have questions or comments before I open it to the public?
I have,
Brad. Yep, I see you, Brad. Go
yeah,
right
I have
ahead.
a question for our applicants. Do you work there at the Glendale site?
I am in the office. I'm the office administrator.
Okay, how often do you visit that site?
How often? I try to go every day because my office would be in the thing.
Okay, so is it your understanding that the only type of work that's going on now currently is car detailing?
I know that they are working on their own cars. We're not working on any customer cars because we don't have the proper things that we're supposed to, like we did at Powder Mill.
And so these cars that they're working on, these are registered vehicles.
Yes.
Okay, because your lot is full of almost every car in your lot is an unregistered vehicle, and they're in various forms of disrepair.
Yes.
And I also see that they come and go from the site.
Yes. So those are the cars that we buy from auction, and those are the cars that we had there since we were at Powder Mill.
Okay, but you get new ones every day, and some of the ones that are there disappear. Where do they go?
Powder Mill.
Okay. So
Because
how
we had Powder Mill, and that's where the spray booth is. And then we've been renting this property since of January of last year. So they disappear because we have them over there. And then we send them back to California where they came from. Well, they don't come from California. The dealer that bought them from California sends them to us because they're all Massachusetts cars when you buy them from auction. So they're not gonna buy like from a Massachusetts auction and then send it to to California to do whatever. So that's why you'll see them come and go.
Okay, so so the cars that are there on the lot in Glendale Street are cars that are there just to get staged somewhere else, and they're not, the cars that are in the lot are not getting worked on or being detailed or anything on site.
Because those are the ones that were stored until we can move them. Because you'll see that a lot of those cars, like in the past, there was a lot of cars that were just stored there because Powder Mill has limited space too, and we were having some issues with the landlord. So we had to bring them here and they just sit here. So now you'll see most of them disappear because we have to do a lot of work here if we are approved. And
Okay.
you'll see, and then we do work on a lot of unregistered cars because those are for dealers. So you'll see, we work with Nano Auto Sales in Concord. He'll bring his cars here and they're not registered because he's a registered dealer. We were working with Subaru McGovern. We work with Car Express in Stowe. So you'll see a lot of unregistered cars, but not all of them are ours.
Okay, but they're not getting worked on at the site.
Well, at this moment, no, because we don't have anything that we can. The cars that we do work on are our own personal cars.
Okay. All right. I've just observed that there's many cars that come and go. The deliveries come at various times at night. Last week there was a car that was dropped off at 11:30 at night.
That
On a
was my-
flatbed. Yeah, at 11:30 at night. And then on Friday there was one that was dropped off at 8:30 at night. So I was just curious as to where and when these cars are coming and going.
Yeah,
I
those-
also noticed that you have employees that are parking on the street, and occasionally I see them parking in the library parking lot. I don't think they're using or all of them are not using the central parking downtown.
I will
um,
make sure that they're
I'll-
aware.
And
Also, that parking lot is shared by one of the tenants, I believe. They have 2 parking spots that's right next to one of your bays.
Yes, we've already talked to them and they have no
Okay.
problems with us.
okay.
Okay, but that they will be affected if you start loading up the parking lot with more than, with many cars.
We have already spoken to them, and that's why I had mentioned earlier that we've spoken with most of the neighbors and we explained what our business and what we're trying to do. And especially with 8.5, who you're referring to, they have no problems with us, and we all discuss any plans of action if they come across any problems, and then we will deal with it then.
All right, I just I've been living right there for quite a while, and when it was Auto Manicures, a detail shop, it was very quiet, and you would never know until you saw the cars moving around, nice clean cars moving around, that they were actually doing any kind of business. Now it's very loud. If this is just employees working on their cars, I have to say that it's very loud. The doors are open to the bays, and you can hear the sound all the way from Nason Street, even down to Acton Street at times, which is pretty far away.
I
So-
will make sure that they
Thanks, Vern.
know that we have to fix those problems.
And just in terms of looking at what need to weigh in on tonight, it's whether the proposed use is more detrimental than the current use. I've heard potential concerns regarding changes in noise and parking and traffic flow. Was there anyone else that had any clarifying questions or comments? Okay. I don't think we have any other members of the public on, but for sake of formality, any members of the public that wish to speak at this point? Okay, then I think we can have a motion to close the public comment.
Make
You
a
wanna-
to
Thanks.
public comment portion of the meeting.
Thank you, Leslie. Do we have a second?
Second,
Jerry, thank you,
Second.
Jerry. So the roll call vote, Paul,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes,
John,
Yes.
Jerry,
yes.
Brad, I don't think you're voting for this one, so I'll skip
Correct.
to myself, and I'm also a yes. So public comment period at this point is closed. Having Rick frame this earlier, sort of a macro finding, was really helpful for me in terms of framing it mentally. And I heard some prior concerns voiced, as I said, about potential changes associated with this use that sounded more like they were skewing towards detrimental, but does anyone feel differently? Anyone want to clarify or add anything?
I just have one point of confusion that I think was shown quite clearly, if I
Mhm.
can say it that way.
Yeah.
is that there seem to be many little things going on or planning to be going on in that structure. And so if we're just going to be saying a change of use, I think the case is that there are many things going on, and which one of those many are we allowing and which ones are we not allowing, unless we come up with a very specific set of criteria. You know, like parking cars and storing them for transport somewhere else, that's a business into itself.
Yeah. And would potentially require additional approvals beyond that
Exactly.
outlined today. Yeah, Paul, you hit the nail on the head, and that's sort of where I was going earlier. It's like if we, depending on how the vote goes, would a no vote, if we wanted to do that, be enough? Or do we need to specify specific uses so that the subsequent permitting pathways? I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. Bill, do you have any thoughts? Like, do we need to, I mean, there was one use identified in the legal notice and in the staff report. So I would feel uncomfortable adding additional uses to that when they weren't included in the published legal notice.
I would tend to agree with that. We advertised what, what we understood, was the use, which was for an auto body shop. I think, on the other hand, some of the impacts are probably similar, so you could probably consider that. But I would say that the board has to determine, they would have to address what was advertised.
Bill, I hope you misspoke when you just said auto body. Do you mean mechanic? Because they're very different things.
No, it was advertised as auto body repair, right?
May I just, I think it's because we were an auto body and repair shop on Powder Mill. And because of the Glendale being the way Glendale set up, we went down to just repair.
Okay,
Okay,
So I
so,
think that's where the confusion is getting, is just because for a whole entire year, we were auto body, auto body, auto body.
so, I mean,
It's the same use category.
so auto body is
oh,
not part of the language for Glendale Street.
No, it'd just be repair.
okay. I stand corrected, yeah, apologies. And yeah, that's correct.
It's the same use category within your bylaws.
Mhm.
I see.
Mm.
Rick or Bill, if they wanted to, since it's motor vehicle repair or body work in the use table, if they wanted to incorporate body work at another date, but we made a finding on motor vehicle repair, would that
May I
change?
just come in?
You're doing a finding relative to a change to that box in the use table. That
So-
box in the use table
okay.
requires a special permit from the planning board. So it becomes their issue.
I see.
You're just doing a finding relative to that box.
Okay. Thank you. Back to your,
And I just want to add real quickly, if the applicant is uncomfortable with the limitation of those uses or feels that they've changed their mind about what specific uses they want to use in that building, they can always withdraw this application and come back to the ZBA with a different application with a use that's specific to where they want to go.
thanks, Rick. And Joanne, I see your hand. It'd be helpful to hear your thoughts on that, because I'm very confused at this point, and I don't know if I'm the only one.
So the body shop, we're not looking to be a body shop here at Glendale. So, some of the guys went back, worked out something with the landlord at Powder Mill, and they're only renting the back half, which is the body shop, when we were there as well. So they're going to open their own body shop business in like in the next few months or so, to ask the planning board if they can have their body shop there. And we're going to work with them, like any cars that need body work, we just send it to them. So we're just looking for the repairs portion of it. The rental cars, I know it wasn't added, but I know we've mentioned it in the past. This was just a question, like if it was, but if we have to go to the select board to do it, then we'll do that. Really, we're just trying to see if it's possible to have a repair shop here at Glendale, because that's the primary business that we're trying to run. We just thought adding the rental cars would help when, once Powder Mill gets their stuff together, you know, they can send it if like Avis or Enterprise doesn't have a car, they can come to us and we have a vehicle for them. But that's kind of like the minuscule thing. We're not like set on, you know, rental cars. We can come back to in the future once we figure everything out. Really, we're trying to just get the correct zoning approval and the planning board for our repair shop. Because we have a lot of customers that we have to deny because we don't have the proper permits, because since we moved location. And it was fortunate that we had to, unfortunately we had to, but here we are. So this is why we have to go through the ZBA just to get approval for the repair shop.
Okay. So just motor vehicle repair, no body work. Just
Correct.
to clarify the site, okay. So the question is still whether the proposed change to the motor vehicle repair shop is more detrimental than the existing use as the auto detailing business.
Yeah, that's what would be appropriate finding. If we to decide.
And Paul, you had asked a good question about what about the other potential ongoing current uses on the site? Are they adequately captured under auto detailing business, or would we need to identify or weigh in on other potential uses beyond motor vehicle repair shop? If I'm paraphrasing
I think
correctly.
I think it's a complicated, slippery slope.
Mm,
And the thing is, as it's been described, she wants to run a repair shop. If I'm getting this correct now, I'm getting confused myself. But ancillary to that, it might end up being a rental car business to help people get their cars repaired effectively. And she still has the transport business. And then our question, as Rick outlined, is simply the non-conforming structure for this use. If I'm sorry, Rick, if I screwed it up, that's what I'm trying to get at. And so this is like part one of a 2 or 3 part decision process to get her in business doing what it sounds like she's already doing.
Well, I would make one point, Paul, is that there this hearing is not to determine anything about rental cars. That would have to be a separate action. So at this point, it's just determining if the use of a mechanic shop or repair shop with a detail shop is more detrimental than the current use.
And also our storage area. Because these cars are not necessarily, all of these cars are not necessarily going to be repaired there on site. All the cars that are on the site now are not necessarily going to be detailed or repaired on site.
Well, Joanna, that's a good question. Are you going to be, you're going to be keeping overnight, you're going to be keeping more than one vehicle there overnight then? Regularly, correct? I mean, So there's a level of that in there as well.
Yes,
For-
just because we do have as I mentioned, we do have a dealer in California, in Concord and in Stowe that bring their cars. So sometimes we don't service them right away because those are just sales cars. And if they're not, saying that I need this by this date, they just kind of sit there until we're ready to fix them. But we do move them to Powder Mill and back because sometimes Powder Mill has more space than here.
Are they all cars that you work on though?
Yeah, they're all cars that will be worked on.
Okay, so the storage of those vehicles then, Brad, would really be dealt with in a discussion of the special permit with the planning board.
Gotcha, because they're ancillary to the repair use.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh, Rick, I'm glad you're still on tonight. This one is really twisting my brain in knots.
In the end,
Thank you for
yeah,
simplifying it.
but we're right where we started for what the board's charge is.
Right.
It's a big help having Rick tonight. Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. I can't even remember. Did we close the public comment? I have that on my cheat
Yes,
sheet.
I think you closed the
We
comment.
did. Thanks, Paul.
And
So-
now unless anybody else has anything else, I'd like to make a motion to approve her request, whatever it was that the zoning board is supposed to vote on. I just don't remember the phraseology of that.
Wait a minute, we didn't have board discussion.
We've been doing that.
Oh, between each other? Did we open that up? Because that was, I thought it was gonna be board members only discussion.
Yeah, we've been discussing it for quite a while now.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has, if anyone has anything else to add. Feel free to
Yeah,
jump
so
in.
before we vote, or in my case, not vote, I'd like to say that I believe that that this use, their permit or their what they're asking for is very much more detrimental to the neighborhood and the surrounding areas than just the detail shop.
So that's a good point, Brad. And we should probably mention to the applicant that if she withdraws and changes, she can come back again. If we deny her at this meeting, she's cooked for what, 2 years, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
By doing that, if you think, Joanna, you could tighten it up and address, you've heard the concerns. That would be an option. It's up to you.
May I speak? I know it's only board members. So I did mention in the beginning to Brad that, and to everyone, that if there is a problem, that's why we spoke with most of the neighbors. Because if there is a problem that you guys have a concern, we want to make it work. We don't want to have to get denied for reasons that could be corrected in the beginning before getting approval. Because the thing is, we had such a tough year last year with Powder Mill. We were pretty much forced to come to Glendale because we had other plans for use of Glendale instead of a repair shop. And that's why we had to come to the zoning board to see. And I understand what Brad's concerns are, but this is why we're asking, like, whatever your concerns are, let me know and I can talk to all the employees and then to Mario, who is the business owner, so we can make sure. And Brad can also come over and say, hey guys, I don't like this. Is there something you can do, rather than just say, oh, this is a detrimental problem, where like, we're willing to work. We work at Powder Mill and the neighbor is there. Like, we're not going to try to cause problems. And yes, the work as an auto mechanic, it can be noisy. but we will put sound barriers up and close the doors if that's the major issue. And if it's too many cars, we will look for finding a way to minimize the site. Like, we spoke to 8.5 who shares the driveway with us, and we were talking about, like, if this is a problem, could we put a fence if we get a permit and stuff?
Sure.
And
Jo-
they,
Joanne, if I could, I think I completely understand what you're saying and I appreciate it, but I think it might be helpful. There's a lot of questions to what exactly is being proposed. It might be in your best interest to put together a clear, an updated and more clear application that spells out exactly what is proposed and includes as much information as you can at this point about some of what the potential impacts may be and what you're willing to do or proposing to do to address them, understanding this is a macro finding and the details would be fleshed out by a planning board, but you're referencing things that you'd be willing to do for sound attenuation. And that's great to know that, but that's not something that was in the application. And Rick, I see
Yeah.
your hand.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that if she still wants to do what it was advertised for in terms of a change in this hearing and just a repair shop, then she, rather than withdrawing, requesting to withdraw and then reapplying, she could request a continuance to give her time to make preparations for a better presentation under the same use.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Rick, I was going to recommend something similar to that, but I was also going to suggest that she write the conditions that we would put into our decision. And then we could debate those specific conditions, 9 to 5, no more than 5 cars a day, whatever she feels she can deal with, fences, as she mentioned, all those conditions, and come back in a month as a continuance.
I agree, Paul.
I have a question about that. Aren't we just voting on whether it's more detrimental to the neighborhood or not? And that's
Brad,
Yeah.
you're not voting.
No, I mean, I'm just
And
asking, isn't that what the board is supposed
you
to
were
do?
supposed to stop talking when it was closed to the public. You're an abutter. You're just an abutter here. I'm sorry. I know it seems
Okay.
cruel to say, but
No.
I'm sitting here listening to what essentially is mass general law that I've been having to deal with for the last 35 years, just being trod upon, and it's wrong.
The one other consideration also is whatever the board chooses to do tonight, the planning board may impose other conditions, or if they chose to grant it. I mean, I don't know what they would do, but that would all be addressed, like with all the concerns that were brought up, that would be addressed by planning board. I don't know what they would do, but it might be a good idea, as Rick had suggested, either to continue and just tighten up everything, and so the board has a solid idea of what's proposed, and it covers all their bases.
You're still gonna have tow trucks. And nobody who works in a car mechanic shop likes to have the doors closed during the summer. So these are things that are gonna have to be dealt with if she comes back with another plan.
Well, it's up to Paige and to run the meeting. I mean, we're just debating back and forth here. But if you want to offer a chance for Joanna to come for a continuance, or because I've got a motion on the table to vote, it hasn't been seconded yet, to deal with it tonight.
Joanne, as the applicant, I'll give you the option if you would want to take your chances and extend and try to address some of these issues, or take your chances and go forward with a vote tonight. I mean, ultimately, can't prejudge the outcome either way, but I think you're on mute if you're talking.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking to,
Oh, okay.
I'm just, before I give an answer, I'm just collaborating.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to make sure that you knew we couldn't hear you.
Oh, I was talking, sorry. Just for the board's information, I'm looking out. We have a May meeting that we moved up for a now canceled application. Which is May 22nd, or we could go to June.
Mhm. Are there any other items on the May agenda besides the cancellation, or is that deadline passed to get on that agenda?
The deadline is probably passed by now. Let's see. Yeah, deadline's passed. I don't think we'd get anything in.
I'll be out of town, but I could probably still zoom in.
So we're requesting if you can give us the 1 month continuance, so then we can give you more of a more detailed description of what we're asking for the repair shop.
Okay.
To Joanna, to the May 22nd you're talking about?
If that is the ZBA meeting, yes.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday. Usually we meet on Monday, but that one's a Wednesday because of.
Is it a holiday, I think? On that Monday,
I'm sorry?
or the weekend that Monday?
No, the next Monday is the holiday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why we did it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
May 20
meeting.
And,
Okay,
you know, this is Rick Asman speaking. I encourage you to develop, these plans as soon as possible and take them out and talk to Brad and your other neighbors about them, see how they feel about the improvements, and then make any modifications based on what they say before you bring it back to the board.
definitely. So just so I know, like, the concerns that you guys have, so I can implement them in the continuance, it would be the tow truck, the garage doors with like the noises, and the storage. I know that was one of the biggest things for Brad, was the storage of the dealer cars that we work on, but we don't get to right away.
So, does it have to be in the plan that, all that information about storage of hazardous materials and blah, 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 that we've dealt with others? Does she have to address that, or is that just a given that these?
That would be a planning board phase for that.
Yeah, it's something she'll take to the planning board, but she's showing you now so that you understand the intensity of use and how it's being mitigated.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I think that'd be helpful is a clear description of what the current activities are, what some of the, I like the phrase intensity of use, what the intensity of use is in terms of sound, visual impacts, traffic use are, and then what some of the proposed use is, with clear examples that touch upon the same type of categories in terms of what the potential sound, noise, traffic, safety.
So like how we repair them and how they are delivered to us, pretty much. Just so I know, because when you say clear activities of cars or the intensity, like.
Yeah,
we're not-
whatever your ask is. So in terms of use, like what activities would fall under that use?
And I think Rick made a very important point as well about discussing with the butters.
Yes, no, we did
yeah.
speak with some abutters. We will speak with them again, because a few did come to us and we, talked, we showed them, not inside the garage, but we showed them like the majority of what we're doing. But I will send out another notice to,
And because the same thing's gonna happen with a planning board if it goes that far too. You know, so
Yeah.
you might as well get everybody happy if you can with
yes.
it and see what they, you know, what can be done.
So in as a intensity of use can be a lot of things. It's going to be the amount of noise that you create. It's going to be the hours of operation for different phases of what you do. It's going to be the number of trips in and out of the lot during the day and the hours that occurs. It's lighting is an intensity of use. All those things that impact, you know, what happens on that property is the intensity of use.
I will definitely be prepared with all that and ask any questions with the abutters again, and speak with them what they would like us to do.
So would if the board was good to select the May 22nd date, is that? If they're, I don't know if that's what they want, but is that good with you if they did?
That's fine, I will make it work.
Or the board could go to the June, I'll leave it up to, you know,
I prefer sooner than later, just because
okay.
work has been held up, since we moved.
And is it definitely May 22nd? I have May 29th on my calendar, but I've been wrong earlier today, so,
I think it's 22nd.
okay.
I mean, let me double check. I mean, it was a weird day. Let's see.
Yeah, I had the
It's a
29th as
Wednesday.
well.
It's a Wednesday.
Yeah,
Mm,
I could do the 22nd, but I have on my calendar, it was the 29th.
Let me just,
Yeah,
Is it,
I have the
is it
29th.
a Tuesday or a Wednesday?
oh, maybe it was 20, let's see.
Normally they're Tuesdays, but this was a special meeting.
It was
Yeah, it was
Wednesday the
scheduled for
29th, what I
Wednesday.
have. Yep.
That's possible. I'm all wrong. Let's see here. Let me see. Well, it's easy enough to check. Let's see. Confirming. 1, 2, 3 summer, 18th.
Calendar.
Let's see. Trying to see. It was all based on the 1, 2, 3 summer. But I mean, you know, regardless, we can. At this point, you could do whatever. Let's see, nothing was advertised, so it really doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah, I have the 29th down in my calendar.
I must have said that. Let's see, did I? Good heavens. Special meeting.
I have a note from you, Bill. It says 123 summer scheduled but not advertised for May 22nd.
That's what I thought it was.
That works for me as well.
Yeah, I can do that.
That works for me.
Let's see, here's a Leland.
Maybe the calendar invite was just sent for the wrong day.
I think that's probably what happened. I just gotta find the email. I marked it on my work calendar here, and it's very possible. We had dates flying all. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Let's see. I did have May 29th. You're all right. You're all correct.
So which one do you pick if we're all right?
Let me just, May 8th. We went back and forth. 29th. 29th. So May 29th, yeah. That's what we had scheduled. So we can do either.
Well, which one's Memorial Day?
Neither. Memorial
May
Day
27th is Memorial Day.
is May 27th.
All right.
So
I mean, how many can make it the 22nd? I don't care which one it is. Let's of all of us, how many can do the 22nd? I can. 3.
I got to make some arrangements.
Ah,
Either day, I gotta make some arrangements.
Oh, okay, so either one is,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, either one is iffy.
Paul, what about you?
Just tell me where I'm supposed to be when.
That's a married man.
That's your wife's.
Well, Jerry, you know, you
Did
call
I
in
say
from-
that? I didn't say
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It was like my thoughts appearing. came out loud.
Jerry, you missed it. You call in from Florida every so often. I'm in Western Nevada right now.
Ooh.
Good,
Oh,
And
good.
yesterday it was 100 degrees.
Ooh,
Oh, well, that's not good.
that's a little warmer than here. All right, so have we figured it out yet? Is it the 22nd? Yes, I think. Sounded like it would work.
that works for me.
Okay.
So then we need a motion to continue this hearing to our next scheduled meeting on May 22nd.
I'll
So
move that.
All right, and do we have a second?
Sure.
Leslie. Great. Roll call vote. Paul,
Yep.
Leslie,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes,
and myself is also a yes. So Joanna, we will see you again in a month.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Feel free to reach out to Bill or Rick in the meantime if you have any questions.
I will. Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep, likewise. And Bill, anything to report, or we were just
Uh,
looking for a motion to close at this point?
Yeah, I think
I shall move.
Second. Any second.
Second, third.
All right. Do we need to do official roll call vote for this one? I suppose. Paul,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jerry,
yes.
Brad, and myself also a yes. Thank you, everybody. That was quite a day or an
Update.
evening. I
That was a
appreciate
tough
you all hanging out
All right.
with me tonight.
Happy Earth Night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye,
Good job.
everyone.